transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy. ATTR-CM is a rare and underdiagnosed.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Thanks for hanging out. Welcome into Thursday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. Chris Schmidt. Elijah Herbel is off to do a stellar job of umpiring. Connor Clark is in. He's rolling his sleeves up for some Salt Dog baseball here in the near future. Numbers to get in with Hail Varsity today, 489-1240, 489-1240. And can dial up across the Hail Varsity Radio Network, 800-825-5865. Feel free to check out the stream. You can watch the show a couple of different ways, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, and also the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. Coffee and cream, 7 to 10 weekday mornings on the stream there, or you can catch us in the afternoon. Excited to have you along. Brandon Vogel could be with us in about 15 minutes. Get his take on the ongoings with things in Nebraska. Hour 2, Bill Bender's Sporting News will join us. We'll hit some college football post-spring thoughts with him. And then Gary Barnett will join us at 5:25. Pretty big spread on the Buffs in the Athletic. Deion's roster flip and how it's being perceived by those in the Power 5 league. So we'll talk about that and get into some quarterback thoughts with, not just Nebraska, but how you'd go about it. That's one thing Coach Barnett was great at is kind of stacking his quarterback room, whether he was coordinator or quarterbacks coach, head coach. But there's a way you'd like to do it, but there's a way that it's being done right now in the portal era. Can always email the show, Chris at hailvarsity.com. Connor, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this question. And I ask this in all seriousness. Do you still have moments when you're watching sports, you're a sports fan, does it ever creep into your head that thing is rigged? I mean, there's the old joke about the whistle, the foul, the NBA. There's complaining about NBA officiating. You have the Tim Donaghy saga. I bring this up because of the Auburn baseball story. Or excuse me, sorry, Auburn. The Alabama. Sorry, I slip. The Alabama baseball story we'll get to here in a minute with their head coach being dismissed. But is that still a thing with you? I don't look at someone screwing up a play or getting beat horribly as, well, he's tanking it. He bet against or on, right? I don't look at it that cynically anymore. I'm super naive. We've had enough interviews over the years with former mob boss Michael Franzese, and he's kind of doing his own thing on a big platform now, so he's a little harder to get a hold of. That said, I mean, he was the king at it back in the day. You walk in, you sit down with a college kid. Here's a $10,000 envelope. We don't need you to lose. We just need you to miss a few free throws. And is that still real with you, Connor, or you as a sports fan? When things just go absolutely sideways, do you ever worry about the integrity of the game? I mean, we have seen stories in media and in movies about the Black Sox scandal or Boston College shaving points allegedly with Henry Hill back in the late 70s or early 80s, whenever that takedown happened. There's money being made now in the NIL era. There's sports gambling legal in this state. You're not able to wager on Creighton or Nebraska, but the point is it's all around. The bet that was placed on a straight up LSU win all I've been able to find out is for a large amount. But it was made in Cincinnati at BetMGM, which is inside the Great American Ballpark at Cincinnati, where the Reds play. Pete Rose is absolutely screaming right now. You mean I can actually legally bet in my own ball yard? Sorry about the joke. But I just don't, honestly, I pray that it won't infiltrate. And just when you think things are okay, there's accusations here about Bama's head baseball coach pulling a pitcher, his starter, and inserting another guy an hour before game time. And clearly Greg Byrne had some research to do, and the termination process is underway with the head coach of Alabama baseball.
I've never been one to really kind of go that route.
You don't go into that deep dark corner.
No, because it's
possibility.
It's so rare, right? And like this is a rare story.
You'd hope.
Yeah, and so, I mean, usually when something goes wrong, especially if it's for like one of my teams, like for instance, the Cubs got walked off earlier today. I'm not thinking that
somebody threw the game. You're just thinking it's the Cubs.
It's just like the Cubs just suck right now. Like that. Like that's what I'm thinking. So I've never really. That's interesting though too, because if you really dive into a team, and this wasn't obviously betting, but this was cheating still, and betting is, I guess, a kind of a form of that. Is if you go back and you look at, a lot of people caught the Astros because they looked at the trends, right? And what they were doing at home offensively versus what they were doing on the road offensively, and how
they're just a different team at home. Connor.
It's just how the numbers varied, right? So I've never been one to think about like, oh, so and so's got money on this game, or oh, the refs are really screwing us over here, unless it's like egregiously bad. But it's just such a rare story. Like when I saw this today, I was like, whoa, like that's intense.
It's
like,
major.
That's crazy. So it'll be interesting to look at, and like how severe this was, and what that large amount that you referred to earlier actually is.
I don't have a number. We'll get into a little bit of this with Vogel as well, but Brad Bohannon, the guy makes $425,000 a year. Base salaries $275,000 a year. And why are you pulling your starter? Your team's tied for third in the SEC West. You're 30-15 in the mother of all baseball divisions.
Yes, the SEC.
You're having a good season. LSU's number one and incredible. No new story there. They're always great. But you pull your guy with air quote back tightness, you put in somebody else, and then all of a sudden, bang, there's a large wager for an outright win for LSU. I mean, it's the same as, it's not betting against your team. In this case, maybe so, because if the large wager is from, I don't know if the coach was betting, but clearly some information may have allegedly gotten to somebody in Cincinnati at BetMGM to put down a large wager on a Friday night college baseball game. That's not an out of the ordinary bet. Maybe the amount was, but I'm just saying, picking LSU straight up as the number one team in the country to beat Alabama. But the icing here is pulling this Friday night starter.
Clearly something was going on.
That is absolutely jacking with the integrity of the game.
Yeah, and well, especially a game like baseball too, where it's been such a timeless game, and it's a lot of baseball fans aren't a huge fan of change of the game. Like for instance, this year with like the pitch clock and all that stuff. Like there's a lot of people who support it. There's also a lot of people who don't like it, and I feel like baseball, the community in general, is kind of more of a traditional approach, I guess. And so it's kind of like, if you're asking a manager what the easiest sport to fix is, it's probably baseball, right? So,
sure.
I mean, clearly he knew what he was doing, but he clearly didn't realize that people would catch on so fast. So
that's a clear flare up. Hey, we're pulling our starter, but what's crazy is Alabama jumped out 8-1, and excuse me, LSU jumped out 8-1. LSU jumped out 8-1, and then kind of held on 8-6. So it got a little dicey. We'll spend more time on this portal news. Wilhelm Breidenbach, the Unabomber, is off to the portal. Moment of silence for Wilhelm. I loved his effort. I know his consistency was up and down. And, minutes and touches are probably going to get cut into. So it was time to move on.
I mean, he needs watching Wilhelm the past 2 years, but especially this year when he started to get more minutes as the season progressed a little bit. And obviously the injuries had a part of that, but he just needs more in-game experience, I think, because the amount of times, and I couldn't even count them, the amount of times that Wilhelm would go in the game and pick up 2 fouls in a span of 4 minutes was way too high. So I think he needs to go to a place where he's going to get a good amount of minutes each and every single night. He can learn about, where to be more aggressive and where to not be, what type of situation to put himself in there. Because the effort is there, and that's a part of why the fouls are being committed, because maybe it was almost too much effort sometimes. But I mean, it's kind of, I think we all saw that coming after the Alec commitment. I think that makes sense.
Sure.
Because they're the same position. Alec, hometown kid, a little bit older. He's going to get more playing time, obviously, through the door. So I think he just needs to go to maybe a group of 5 school and see where he can get more minutes and just kind of improve as a basketball player, because there's no doubt. I mean, he has the talent. He's a 4-star coming out of Modern Day, which is a really good basketball
I know.
program.
I mean, that's just it. You look at kind of the backstory on Wilhelm, and I know he had to jack with a knee injury. He had to battle back from that. I like his, not always the result, but I loved his willingness to try and stretch a defense with his 3, but he was always tough down low. I mean, he wasn't always super coordinated. That happens with big guys. But, man, he fought. He fought hard. He was as tough a guy as there was in the paint for Nebraska. He'd get in there and mix it up. And around the rim, I mean, his little shot fake and catch and shoot. So someone will get a really hungry guy that has some talent, and maybe his best days are in front of him somewhere else. Weighing in on the sports gambling discussion point, Nick says betting on sports is fun, but anyone that messes with the integrity of our game needs some cement shoes. A little mobster take there. I like it. Good stuff, Nick. No violence. Husker baseball took it on the chin again. What are they, 5-5 in midweek games?
They're 4-4 against the Summit League.
I know.
Year.
So they would be struggling even in the Summit. Right now, they're hanging on for dear life to make Omaha. That's not good. With Nebraska football, as we have a little bit of a pause here, we've talked a little bit about position groups and where things can go Nebraska-wise. Will Compton chimed in with Bussin' with the Boys. This has been edited for airplay, but it was a quick little snippet from Will on Twitter, and he's already all in on the 2023 season prediction for Nebraska football. What does Will have to say about the Big Red? He got coaxed into to calling his shot already as we're in May.
Can you please, without being as biased as possible, give us a reasonable record you think they'll have?
I don't know if it's time for that. All right. Minnesota, we're starting the season off with a dub. Nebraska, 1-0. Colorado, I've been out there saying it, 2-0. Going into Northern Illinois, I think we dust them pups. Louisiana Tech, there's no reason we can't be 4-0 going into the Bussin' Bowl. Michigan, Nebraska. Okay, this is where I will go ahead and say we're winning last drive of that football game. We're going to fight.
Okay, so that's the first handful of games. Unbeaten.
Your first half, 5-0.
5-0.
Come on.
Write it down. Will Compton says, we love Will. Part 2 of the prediction continues.
Illinois, we lose. Northwestern, we whoop them nerds' ass. We are going, 6-1. Purdue, I do think we sneak this game. Purdue, dude. We can't beat the Boilermakers. 7-1. Nebraska, Michigan State. At Michigan State, I can see us having, again, I think we're drinking our Kool-Aid a little bit too much. That's where I think we lose one, 7-2. Nebraska, Maryland. Look, there's no world where Maryland ever beats us. Nebraska, Wisconsin. I think we lose to Wisconsin. Let's go ahead and say, what is that? What's that record? 8-3. Iowa, I think we beat Iowa. Rivalry week, to go to the Big Ten Championship, we beat Iowa 9-3 going into the Big Ten Championship. That's what I think happens in the regular season.
That prediction of that season is just so wild because there's some
so early.
Well, there's some like unrealistic picks in there, and then he goes right back down to earth saying loss against Illinois and Michigan State and Wisconsin.
I don't like that game being a short week.
Me neither.
I don't like that game anyway because it's just not good. But you start out 5-0, you limp to 4-3, but you beat Iowa, and you get to go to Indy and probably play a ticked-off Michigan team if you do upset them. Or here's Ohio State waiting for you. But good for Will being first nationally and kind of a local voice as a former Husker. I don't hate his losses. Illinois is going to be tough. Sparty's going to be tough. And Whiskey's going to be tough. And those are all bang, 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 as the Big Ten likes to do with a lot of their teams. I mean, the stacked schedule is a real thing. It's real in the SEC. It's real in the Big Ten. I like getting Minnesota early because they get better as the year goes on. I think Colorado's an absolute nightmare. So you better beat Colorado this year while they're still trying to find folks to wear helmets. Brandon Vogel's going to join us, Hail Varsity, with you on a Thursday, and we're presented by Currency.
Hail Varsity Club in La Vista is the perfect place to go for lunch every day. Dine in at the club and get our express lunch special for just $10. It's the all-beef Hail Varsity burger, fries, and a fountain drink delivered to your table in under 15 minutes. Hail Varsity Club in La Vista for lunch every day. And the perfect spot to watch all the big games. Reserve your table today and check out the events we've got coming up at hailvarsityclub.com. In La Vista, right next to Cabela's. Hail Varsity Club.
Hail Varsity is a must-have for true Husker fans. Get a monthly magazine that'll make checking the mail fun again. Daily analysis, the breaking news, including the inside scoop on recruiting on hailvarsity.com. And every June, that's right, every June, you'll get the Nebraska Football Yearbook, a season preview completely dedicated to Nebraska football. That's as comprehensive as national previews. Remember, get to hailvarsity.com.
No matter where you live, what you make, or who you voted for, there are some things that will impact all of us soon. Whether you're concerned about the alarming increase in man-made disasters, financial institutions collapsing, or worsening food shortages, Americans are preparing in numbers not seen since World War II. What's changed is how we prepare. And the folks at My Patriot Supply have made it easier than ever for you to have peace of mind, knowing you're ready for what's next. Go to MyPatriotSupply.com and stock up on over a dozen emergency food kits. These include tasty breakfasts, lunches, dinners, drinks, fruits, veggies, meats, and snacks, averaging over 2,000 calories per day. Get at least one kit per person. As we all know, calories equals energy equals survival. My Patriot Supply food kits are in stock and shipped discreetly. We've seen too many Americans let down by institutions we used to trust. It's time to rely on ourselves. MyPatriotSupply.com. MyPatriotSupply.com.
When you want a brand new kitchen, there's nothing to it. There's a brand new way to do it. 3-Day Kitchen and Bath.
Eileen talks about her experience with 3-Day Kitchen and Bath.
A lot of gross kitchen in the beginning, crack formica, bad floor, ripped linoleum, and I decided to heck with this. I want it done. And I found an ad from 3-Day Kitchen and Bath. I called him. Dave brought all of his stuff. We talked about what I wanted. I chose the materials. It was very easy. He came in. He did what he said. They did it in the time frame that they said, at the cost that they said. His crew was delightful. We came home. Everything had been cleaned up. I would say people are silly not to do 3-Day Kitchen and Bath. I just love it. It's just like I moved into a new home.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Bill Bender's coming up. Gary Barnett next hour. We welcome in managing editor with HailVarsity.com and magazine, Brandon Vogel, at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter is where you can follow him. Read it with HailVarsity.com and magazine, and get the subscription, HailVarsity.com/offer. Vogue's hunkered in his football office. Vogues, how we doing? How's the week?
Going pretty well. Had the 2-year-old's second birthday on Sunday, so that was a big event. And now full on into yearbook prep, which will be coming along in June. So you already dutifully laid out the subscribe options, but if you want that Hail Varsity yearbook, which I think you do, we think we put out a pretty good product there. The time to get in is now.
Did little man for his birthday make a monster wager last Friday with a sports book in Cincinnati?
No. You and I have a connection to Alabama athletics lately, and unfortunately we didn't get tipped off on that, because that would have been a nice birthday present if we'd only known that Alabama LSU game was cooked and in the books. But unfortunately we missed out on that opportunity.
We have had, just full disclosure, like cards on the table, we've got a current connection at Bama. We've had a past dear friend and his father connection at Alabama, and then there's the Saban Coach McBride connection. So I mean, it's pretty deep, man. And then you read about, your back hurts, son. We're going to go with somebody else as the starting pitcher. Meanwhile, in the Pete Rose suite, I'm joking here, at the Great American Ballpark, somebody's putting heat down on a straight up LSU win, even though they're supposed to anyway. I mean, it must have been the biggest red flag in gambling history if you have gaming folks going, that's an unusually large bet on the number one team in the country to beat a tied for third SEC West team.
Yeah, especially when LSU has already lost to Nebraska. No offense, but and the minus odds there tell you a lot of you've got to lay out, whatever number you want to get to get back 80% on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Should have, and I guess did in this case, tell you that something was up with that. But yet, as you mentioned, despite all these connections, nobody let us know. I would have taken 80 cents. I would have taken 80 cents on the dollar.
Well, listen, my problem is it's now legal for me to do. I just got nowhere to do it.
That's true. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have.
The supply chain's an issue, even though we love our friends at the casino. They're awesome. Vogues, I want to get into the roster flip at Colorado. And is it a kind of a danger zone for the rest of college football if this works for Deion? Say they get to a bowl next year. I don't know how in the heck they do it. He's got to fill the rest of his roster with he's got 19 more spots to go. I don't know what his lines of scrimmage look like, but if he pulls a Mel Tucker, that's being very, very aggressive. But say he goes to a bowl with running everybody off. Does it mean it's open season to just hit delete on a roster and start from scratch for the rest of the college football world?
I'm speaking only for me here. I'm not going to try to make any broad, assumptions about it. But if that were to happen, it would upend everything I think I know about college football, which is talent matters. Yes, we can look at Georgia. We can look at Alabama. We can look at Ohio State and say, you signed that many 4- and 5-star players, you're going to have a hard time not being good. And that's fine for the upper echelon of the sport. And a lot of that is regionally dependent. how much access do you have to that kind of talent? For everybody else, like, I think it's a lot about team building, chemistry, culture, all of these things that we can't put a number on. And if Colorado comes in and like jettisons almost literally 90% of their roster and gets a bunch of other people and goes to a bowl after going 1-11, boy, that changes things for me. And I'm somewhat skeptical of, like, I just look at this from a numbers perspective with the number of people they've lost. And I think you're right. I think the lines of scrimmage are the key piece of this. Are there enough players out there to even fill out your roster? Like, you'll give scholarships to, like, their scholarship count will end up where it's supposed to be, but are they players that should be getting a scholarship? And it's just, it's a bold move. I'm in the mode right now of writing previews for the Hail Varsity Yearbook of all of the opponents and all of the teams in the Big Ten for Nebraska. And like the Colorado one at this point is almost impossible to write. Like, I don't feel like we know anything about them. We can't look back at what they were in 2022, which you usually can do. And it's hard to look ahead because forecasting out the majority of these players, you can do some of them, but forecasting out the majority of these players is almost impossible.
Brandon Vogel's with us on Hail Varsity Radio, and this makes me curious now too, because with how chaotic the transfer portal is, and Deion has 19 spots to fill, and then you look at Nebraska and they have the exact opposite problem where they have to get rid of guys in order to meet that requirement. If you're head coaching a football team right now, what problem would you rather have right now just because you can pick up guys so easily nowadays?
That's a really good question and a really good way to frame that. I mean, I guess if you're a head coach, you'd rather have spots to fill because you have options, and you don't, for somebody like Matt Rhule in particular, I think you don't have to have some of those tough conversations of, hey, like, look, we like you, we believe in you, but it's just like you don't have a spot on this team anymore. And all scholarships are guaranteed, and that's a very good thing. Or at least in some conferences they are. And that's good. Like, you're not cutting somebody totally loose and making a financial impact on their life. But I think the place you want to be, like 2, 3, 4 years down the road as we assess this Matt Rhule era at Nebraska, is you need to rely on the transfer portal as little as possible. I really do think that's the place to be. Because if you're constantly having to address immediate needs, it probably indicates that, well, maybe your evaluation was off, or, maybe it's not even that. Maybe your evaluation was right, but a guy just decided he wanted to be closer to home, et cetera, et cetera. Like, not having to deal with a transfer portal might become the ultimate kind of sign of luxury in college football as we get deeper into this era.
That is wishful, isn't it? Because kids are able to leave, and if you get to a spot that can just churn out NIL money, and I know Nebraska's a have in that world, there's still somebody else out there that's going to likely outbid you. That's another problem for Colorado. I mean, they're not flush with dough. I mean, it's got a little history, and they've been good before. They've got the mother of all promoters and a really good old school football guy in Deion. I think he is a good coach, and I think he knows his football. And I think he's got a little harder life lesson. This is business, not personal take that some kids may not be ready for, but he's going to be consistent. He's been consistent, but he's going to need the bags of money to go get the top talent. That's another issue he's running into. So I don't know if it's going to hit that first year. I hope they get good under him. And I hope it's a hell of a ball game. And quite honestly, I hope it's not a hell of a ball game. I hope it's a drubbing, and I don't cheer. I'm interested in it. Brandon Vogel's with us. Vogues, we got a couple minutes left here before we wound down segment one. Will Compton put out his prediction for the 2023 season. A little Twitter clip from his Bussin' episode. Luan put him on the spot. What's Nebraska do in year one? And Mr. Compton came up with 9-3 and a trip to the Big Ten title game. Is that crystal ball greatness, or is that a little heavy? Because I watch the spring game like you. I look at Sims and I look at the question marks behind him. There's question marks on the O-line, and can the D hang in? I think they'll be good, and I think they'll get better. I think by mid-season you could see the D flip in a good way. You could even probably see that with the offense. I think you'll see Nebraska football start to get better as the year goes on, which is going to be nice. But 9 wins, man, I'm all the way back, and I'm probably reading too much into the spring game, but I'm right around that 6-7 number if they catch some breaks.
Yeah, it feels a little bit heavy to me. That said, so I would never myself say I'm at 9 wins, but I think it's closer to the realm of possibility than a lot of people might think. Boy, am I hedging here and making for a terrible radio segment. Sorry. Here's the thing. Who's your favorite in the Big Ten West right now? You taking Iowa? Are you?
I think you got to go Iowa, don't you? Just because.
What about Illinois?
Well, is Iowa's quarterback better than what Illinois got? I'll be flat out honest with you. I don't have Iowa's schedule and Illinois' schedule in front of me, because I think that's always kind of a key to the West, isn't it? What are your brutal road games, and who do you get at home?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think Iowa is probably the pick. I think that will be the pick when we get to the de facto media poll in July. But they've got to replace a ton on defense, which we know matters a ton at Iowa. Illinois is interesting, replacing a quarterback, losing Chase Brown. Also lost their defensive coordinator to Purdue, which by the way, like that Illinois defense put up numbers last year that are good even for the Big Ten, where teams traditionally put up really good defensive numbers. Wisconsin seems like kind of a total wild card. Nebraska seems like pretty much a wild card at this point. So, I mean, there's just like the Big Ten West is wide open in my mind.
Let's go further. One more Nebraska football question, then I'll let you go. I promise. We're up against a break. Hang tight for me. Brandon Vogel going to do some overtime. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency.
Todd Spidell, body shop owner, prospective employer.
You know, I found that one of the best ways to find employees is not by putting an ad in the paper or just asking friends, but actually waiting outside your competitors' places. So today I'm sitting outside and waiting for the guys to get off work so I can ask any of them if they're maybe not happy at work and looking for another job. So maybe you guys could save me a lot of trouble. If you know anybody that's a good, quality-oriented body man and they're looking for a job, have them come out to our North 48th location just north of Cornhusker Highway and ask for me, Todd. Spidell Body Works has a competitive pay plan, great benefits, including vacation, insurance, retirement plan, and you couldn't work for a better boss. Oh, hey, here they come now. Hey, you.
Oh, no, he's
where are you going? Hey, wait, come back. I got to get going after. Oh, well, back to Spidell's.
Apply today at Spidell Body Works, 4020 North 48th Street, just north of 48th and Cornhusker.
Small business owners, we know finishing your to-do list can feel like climbing a mountain, but that mountain is also covered in banana peels. Then when something new gets added to your list, you're like, nope, I'm already climbing this huge, super slippery banana peel mountain of a to-do list. At Progressive, we don't want to make your day any harder. That's why we make it easy to manage your policy on our mobile app. So climbing that banana peel mountain feels more like a leisurely stroll. See if you can save on commercial auto insurance in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Coverage subject to policy terms and conditions.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you know that these days, generating growth is a challenge. By teaming with Bank of America, you'll not just stay ahead of the curve, you'll move it. With access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2023 Bank of America, N.A.
Hi, this is Jeff Mall with Visit Lincoln. Spring can only mean the return of great sports traditions like the Lincoln Marathon and Half Marathon the weekend of May 6th, with the marathon being run on a citywide course that starts and finishes on the campus of the University of Nebraska. Thousands of runners will again enjoy Lincoln's challenging yet scenic course, which is lined with residents of our community that many remark as being some of the best resident cheerleaders they see each year. Festivities again will surround this event as visitors continue their return to pre-pandemic travel levels. Visit Lincoln and the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce have long been supporters of the marathon, and our staff will once again be at the 3 Mile aid station, and we enjoy thanking runners for being in Lincoln, handing them refreshments and cheering them on as they continue their long journey. Make it a point to cheer on and welcome runners as they touch your
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Couple more minutes with Brandon Vogel from HailVarsity.com and magazine. Get your subscription. Get the yearbook ordered now. HailVarsity.com/offer, digital and print. Reminder about your friends at Dyer Law and Workers' Comp. Confused about the options of your workers' compensation claim? Put your trust in the team at Dyer Law to help ensure your rights are protected and you get the settlement you deserve. Call Dyer Law and the team today at 402-393-7529 and visit Dyer.law to chat with the trusted professionals about your workers' compensation claim. That's Dyer.law, Dyer.law, 402-393-7529. Vogues, thanks for hanging tight. Just a couple of last thoughts as we springboard off of Will Compton's prediction of Nebraska's record. Love it. I hope he's right. If you're a Nebraska fan, you hope it's right. What is Nebraska's most difficult road game? As you look at it, I know you're in yearbook mode. You're looking at it. You're at Minnesota. You're at Colorado. You're at Illinois. You're at Sparty. You're at Wisconsin. November's a mother again. As you wind down, you've traded out Minnesota for Maryland, but your stretch is what your stretch is. What if you're to grade it right now? All sorts of off-season feelings right now. What game would you just? All right, let's just cross that off. That's a game we don't need to mess with.
I don't know if any of those games strike me as like, just like chalk up a loss there. In terms of the toughest and where they fall matters here a little bit. Mm-hmm. It might be Illinois. Like, I think you expect, like, you're going to go to Wisconsin. That's going to be tough. And at that point in November, like, we'll have a good idea of what both Wisconsin under Luke Fickell and Nebraska under Matt Rhule are. The Minnesota game is interesting. I think, like, Nebraska has a real opportunity to kind of set the tone for what comes in those two road games to open the season, which hasn't happened in forever, that they've been twice on the road. That feels really important to me in terms of how this 2023 season goes. But in the middle of that, you've got this road trip to Illinois, and kind of to Connor's point, like, hey, Illinois was really good last year, like better than even their 8-5 record showed. And, you know, they kind of faded down the stretch, but that was a really good team. And they've got some holes to fill, some big holes to fill, I think. But can you go to that game, like, assuming that Nebraska is kind of what we think it can be, maybe towards the middle of what we think it can be, not like way above that, not way below that. Just going to Illinois and beating a team that's going to be well coached, well prepared, which I think we can assume about Illinois under Brett Bielema, which wasn't always the case. Like, that becomes one of those games where whether you're a favorite, whether you're an underdog, slight favorite, slight underdog, like, you got to go there and take care of business. And also it's on a Friday night now. Mm-hmm. So that one sticks out to me as kind of one of those road games that might end up defining how this year goes.
It's a short week, Connor and Brandon, too. You get Michigan, then it's a short week because it's Friday. Then you get a little bit longer time to gear up for the Nerds. Is that right? Is that what Will Compton called your Northwestern
I think
Wildcats?
he had a couple more choice words, but
no, I didn't edit.
Or maybe it was the one before.
I didn't have to bleep. No, Northern Illinois and Purdue had to be bleeped a little bit. A successful road record, Vogues, and will get you out is what for Nebraska? 5 road games.
5. I think in a year one, if you go 2-3, you did pretty well. So that would mean, well, like I said, we're opening. Nebraska is opening with 2 road games. Like, and if they go 2-0 in those, it's kind of like breaks off. Like this season can be anything to me. So even if you were to lose the remaining 3 in Big Ten play, like you'd still be, in my mind, in a pretty good spot. So 2-3 feels like a reasonable example. Like if you go 3-2, Nebraska's probably having a pretty good football season.
Vogues, enjoy your weekend. Get the barbecue fired up. Find some other team than Bama to bet on this weekend. All right.
I'll see. I'll ask around, see if there's any sure things.
You let me know. You let me know what you hear. Thanks. Appreciate you. Brandon Vogel with us from HailVarsity.com and Id Magazine. Yay or nay? You ever put a wager down?
I mean, yeah, if you're counting like fantasy football or stuff like that.
Okay. But you don't have a guy you call the tens bar.
No, I mean, I've never really been.
It was never an issue to find somebody that would take a bet in college.
Right. I would like to get more into it, but the laws here are a little bit different than they are in Illinois. So it just kind of trying to find that sweet spot. But I would like to, especially now. Like now is a good time to do it because you got the NBA playoffs on, you got the NHL playoffs on. I know baseball is a little bit more difficult to bet on just because there's so many games and some weird things happen in that sport. But I would like to dabble in it. Maybe not get too much into it because I know people can lose a lot.
Is it disposable income? Are you chasing it? Is it part of your budget? I mean, listen.
Depends on the week.
Right? No, it is, right? And some of the guys that we're close with, I mean, they're dare I say good at it.
I mean, you do it enough times.
Or at least that's all I hear about is them being good at it. And that's not a shot at them. It's, oh, okay, I won X, Y, and Z. And I never do it, though. I mean, I may start once it's legal and I can drive down the road and put it down. It always sounds better in my head or out loud. And I know we do our Friday forecast. Those are a lot of it for fun.
Right.
I've not truly kept score on it. Just it'd be fun to try it though sometime.
It would.
Some weeks will be 5-0 or 4-1, and some weeks are 0. They're just absolute garbage.
Yeah, I mean, it really gets you interested in because, like, I know a lot of my friends have done like daily fantasy, which technically doesn't really fall under what's illegal. You walk the fine line there, and so. I mean, that definitely makes you more interested in a game where you don't really have a dog in the fight. And it keeps you interested and, quite frankly, stresses you out a little bit, depending on how much you have. But
you love or you hate the action, or you can deal with the juice as long as the payoffs at the end. What's the payoff look like for Nebraska baseball? How you feeling here going into Maryland? Last night was not good. What, 16 strikeouts? Is that the number?
I'd have to look.
And 4 home runs. I know Will Compton, excuse me, wrong Will. Oh, I need to take some vitamins or something. Will Bolt, clearly not happy with the plate approach. And you can't keep doing this. It's really over. I mean, the juice, the energy will come back if you can put a little bit of a run together, but you've got a stretch here with Maryland. You need to take 2 out of 3. You got to finish the job against Creighton and then beat Creighton and then do your job against teams that you're air quote better than in league standings. We'll wind down. Hour 1, Hail Varsity continues, presented by Currency. Boulder is the place to be this college football season. And Gary Michaels Clothier's Lincoln and Big Red of the Rockies will be there. Friday before Nebraska, Colorado, the Battle in Boulder party. You're invited and get your reservations today. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity. Be there for the Battle in Boulder in Estes Park, Friday, September 8th at the Ridgeline Hotel in Estes. Enjoy a prime rib salmon buffet, silent live auction, and special guest touchdown Tommy Frazier will be there, along with other Husker greats for an autograph signing. Tickets are on sale now. Adults $100. 12 and under $40. Call Gary Michaels today at 800-556-7848 or GaryMichaels.com. Estes Park is 36 miles from Boulder, and transportation to and from the game is available. Call now before it's sold out. The Battle in Boulder in Estes Park, Friday, September 8th, with Gary Michaels Clothiers and Big Red of the Rockies. Log on today for the Battle in Boulder. GaryMichaels.com or call 800-556-7848.
Do you have heart failure and often hear,
"Those stomach issues ruined your birthday"?
"You're too tired to play catch, Grandpa."
Sweetie, you haven't touched your tools since the carpal tunnel syndrome diagnosis.
if these seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, talk to your cardiologist and ask about transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy, or ATTR-CM, a rare and underdiagnosed disease that gets worse over time. Learn more at connecttoyourheart.com. That's connecttoyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
For the ones finding new ways to ensure the job always gets done. For the ones wearing many hats. For the ones who are hands-on, even from far away. And the ones keeping business moving forward. We are Grainger, offering professional-grade industrial supplies, plus real-time product availability and access to experts ready to answer your toughest questions. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hi, this is Carol Turner. Leach Camper Sales is celebrating 60 years as Lincoln's locally owned RV dealership with a massive RV sales event. This is your last chance to get an RV or trade-in before summer starts. Leach Camper has huge discounts on all units. And come join the fun this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sign up to win prizes, including a $100 gift card to their parts department, a Yeti cooler, and more. I'll be there from 10 till noon. Come celebrate 60 years at Leach Camper Sales, 27th and Cornhusker.
Access to healthcare is a fundamental human need. A new bill threatens that access in Nebraska, and not just for the group it targets. LB 574 would take complex medical decisions away from doctors, patients, and their families. We doctors are already hearing from physicians in training that they will not stay in Nebraska because of this, worsening our existing shortage here in the heartland. Please help us.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Bill Bender's coming up here in about 10 minutes. We'll spend time with Gary Barnett. We say hi to Deuce as he's on the line, 489-1240 to get in. Deuce, what's up?
Pretty good talking to you again.
Hey, man, love hearing from you.
While I'm sympathetic to Coach Bolt's response about the players being selfish, at some point, he's going to have to listen to Bobby Knight when he talks about motivation. Mm-hmm. Bobby Knight said the best motivation is butt on bench. And some of these people, they make no attempt to shorten up with 2 strikes. Everybody's trying to hit a home run. This is not home run derby we're playing here. Learn how to situationally hit, and everybody can do that if you shorten up and try to move the people around. This team will not be good until that happens.
He touched on selfishness, and you're absolutely right about knowing the situation. And Bobby Knight, thanks for cleaning it up for radio with the Bob Knight quote, because it's the general was in the hospital not long ago, and they were playing some of the Bobby Knight's greatest hits. And
good editing.
It was, and it was, the best motivation is butt on bench, and it sends signal to brain.
It's amazing to me because that's the way Bolt's coach was when he was in college. He didn't put up with a lot of missed bunts and those kind of things. But we have people down there that couldn't. I don't know if they could put down a bunt if they had to. And they certainly don't make much of an effort to put one down.
It's a lost art, and it is something that gets you in hot water with your coach about everywhere else, doesn't it?
It should.
Yep.
It should.
Deuce, you
All
take
right,
care,
Tim.
buddy.
Have a
Appreciate
good
you. You too. Yeah.
You know, he brings
guys want to crush the ball.
He brings up an interesting point, too, because you look at the stats on this roster, and you got 3 guys who are hitting 13 or more home runs.
You had 2 of them over 400.
Yeah. And that is literally the opposite of the gritty beats pretty mantra that they've adopted under Will Bolt, because you saw that in 2021, and look what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, conference-only schedule, but still. And now, all of a sudden, you know, you get a lot more home runs, a lot more RBIs, extra base hits, things that are a little bit more sexy.
Long ball, man.
Yeah,
Chicks
exactly.
dig the long ball,
so
Connor.
It's interesting how opposite this team is from that saying. And I'm not saying like that's necessarily a bad thing, but obviously the results haven't been there. So
sometimes you got to sacrifice the Canseco swing for let's just make contact and move the runner over.
Right.
They have absolutely underachieved this year with
those midweeks
talent in the roster. And yeah, you just wonder if they think they're too good. And they should have had their come to Jesus multiple times by now with as many Summit teams as has beat them. And good for the Summit teams, especially the UNOs of the world. I mean, those are some kids that grew up playing against some of the kids on the roster that's going to have an extra edge to beat them. But it's been just laughable, and you have a really talented team in Maryland. You knew that. You've got a bit of a jumble with the Big Ten right now to get to Omaha, and they are so far back into this corner of having to win out in Omaha. There's still time, not writing them off, not writing Will Bolt off. I love Coach Bolt, think he's tremendous, but they just got to get figured out, and time is fleeting. Bill Bender on the way. Sporting news. Gary Barnett coming up. Hour 2 at Hail Varsity, presented by Currency.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Do you have heart failure and often hear,
"Those stomach issues ruined your birthday"?
You're too tired to play catch, Grandpa.
Sweetie, you haven't touched your tools since the carpal tunnel syndrome diagnosis.
If these seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, talk to your cardiologist. Ask about transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy, or ATTR-CM, a rare and underdiagnosed disease that gets worse over time. Learn more at connecttoyourheart.com. That's connecttoyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
For the ones finding new ways to ensure the job always gets done. For the ones wearing many hats. For the ones who are hands-on, even from far away. And the ones keeping business moving forward. We are Grainger, offering professional-grade industrial supplies, plus real-time product availability and access to experts ready to answer your toughest questions. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Nebraska Softball welcomes you to the annual Fan Appreciation Weekend, May 5th through May 7th at Boulder Stadium. Come cheer on your Huskers for the Ohio State Series. There'll be giveaways, face painting, recognition of the seniors, and Saturday's game is free. It's Fan Appreciation Weekend with the Nebraska Softball team. Fun for the whole family. For more information and to get your tickets, call 1-800-8-BIG-RED or visit Huskers.com/tickets. That's Huskers.com/tickets. Go Big Red.
This is your station for local news, talk, sports, and weather. FM 101.5, 1240 AM, KFOR, Lincoln.
From ABC News.
I'm Daria Albinger. Convictions for the leader of the Proud Boys and 3 of his deputies on seditious conspiracy charges. They're in connection with the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Attorney General Merrick Garland.
The evidence presented at trial detailed the extent of the violence at the Capitol on January 6th and the central role these defendants played in setting into motion the unlawful events of that day.
A 5th member, Dominic Pezzola, was acquitted of seditious conspiracy charges, but he was convicted on lesser offenses, including assaulting a police officer.
There's parts of this verdict that essentially we disagree with, that are going to continue in the appellate divisions.
Pezzola's attorney, Stephen Metcalf. Until last week, Carlos Dominguez was a student at the University of California, Davis. Now he's a suspect in a series of stabbings, 2 of them fatal.
These crimes were horrific. They're hard to imagine. They struck fear in the community.
Chief Darren Pytel of the Davis Police Department. A New York jury has sided with singer-songwriter Ed Sheeran in a copyright infringement case.
Ed Sheeran gave a micro concert for the jury. He had a guitar, he sang, and he tried to say that Thinking Out Loud and Let's Get It On are both based on a 4-chord progression that's common in popular music. In fact, his attorneys played this rather humorous mashup video they got off YouTube of some British comedians playing like 100 songs in a row seamlessly that use the same 4-chord progression.
ABC's Aaron Katursky outside the courthouse. Ukraine's capital of Kyiv was targeted by an air attack for the 3rd time in 4 days. It caused considerable damage, but there's no word of casualties. A U.S. Navy ship carrying more than 200 evacuees from Sudan arrived in Saudi Arabia. About 70 on board were American citizens. You're listening to ABC News.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean. Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Good evening, this is Connor Clark. It's currently 80 degrees at KFOR. An in-custody death is under investigation following an overnight standoff with a man barricaded inside of his home near 28th and Clinton. Lancaster County Chief Deputy Sheriff Ben Houchin says it was shortly after 4 o'clock Wednesday afternoon that a 49-year-old man at a home had violated a protection order and threatened a city department at a school by talking to someone else. That person called the police. A warrant was obtained where around midnight, SWAT team members responded and made a forced entry.
They never went inside the residence until after the gunshot.
The gunshot was heard just before 5 o'clock this morning, and investigators found him with a wound.
They did take him to the hospital, and where he succumbed to his injuries.
Houchin says an autopsy has been ordered and a grand jury will likely be called in to investigate since it was an in-custody death. The U.S. Department of Agriculture this week designated 12 Nebraska counties, including Lancaster, as a disaster area because of a drought. Ag producers are now eligible for emergency loans for losses caused by the drought, which has been getting worse in eastern Nebraska. T.J. McDowell Jr., who has been an advisor for Mayor Gaylor Baird for the past year, will now be your new chief of staff. The mayor announcing that on Wednesday as McDowell replaces Jennifer Williams, who has been on the chief of staff since May of 2019. Williams' last day will be May 15th, with McDowell starting his new role the next day. The Lincoln Salt Dog season is right around the corner as players and coaches reported to Haymarket Park earlier this week. The Dogs open up their season on the road in Chicago on May 12th, and the home opener is scheduled a week later for Fireworks Friday on May 19th. Hear every single game this season right here on KFOR. Lincoln's first forecast currently 80 degrees and sunny. Tonight, 50% chance of thunderstorms, a low temperature of 58 degrees. Friday, 40% chance of thunderstorms, a high temperature of 76 degrees. Then Friday night, 30% chance of thunderstorms and a low temperature of 57 degrees. For KFOR News, this is Connor Clark.
could hear all the wind and the house moving.
Trailer homes turned upside down.
Tremendous damage.
We were one of the lucky ones that got out.
Severe storms have already taken their toll on communities around the country this year.
People dying.
Damage is unbelievable.
It's awful.
And the storm season here is just getting started.
Tragic loss of life.
Now, more than ever, you need to know when severe weather is a possibility. Don't play games. Get the latest forecast here. KFOR.
Tonight from the 1011 newsroom, a Lincoln Middle School sends out an important reminder that weapons of any kind aren't allowed there. This after a student brought an airsoft gun to school today. Plus, the battle heating up in the Nebraska legislature.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back into it. It's hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. Let's say hi to Bill Bender. Sporting news at Bill Bender 92 is where you follow him on Twitter. Read him with the sporting news. Bill, you are a huge Star Wars guy. I'm a big Star Wars guy. Plans tonight to crank up any Star Wars?
Oh, for sure. You know, one of my best friends hates it for some reason. So me and the rest of my buddies, we end up texting him Yoda and Chewbacca and everything else all day. And he gets annoyed. He's just the one that slipped through the cracks. And yeah, no, I always enjoy the franchise. I've watched the new ones. I watch all the new ones with my son. So we enjoy it. That latest season of Mandalorian was pretty good.
Well, Bill, have you caught the new season of Andor?
Do they have a second season?
Just the first season, the one that came out, I believe it was about 6 months ago.
Oh, I've watched it all. And yeah, and some of them are a little bit different in tone than others. And I think the best part about it, much like college football, good segue here, is it shows you across the universe, everything. There's those little niches in the universe. And I just like it. I enjoy it. I know a lot of people want to get political and all that about it. I just enjoy sitting and watching Star Wars stuff. It's good stuff.
I love the Disney Plus Kenobi series. I mean, I think that's been incredible.
Yeah, that was very well put together. And, you know, again, when you can offer something for the older generation of Star Wars fans like me and then the younger ones and tie it all together, I mean, that had some really cool moments in it, no doubt.
I'll just let you know, if you're sitting at home and you haven't seen the new season of Andor, it's phenomenal. You'll enjoy it. It's the only thing that Star Wars has ever produced that includes one cuss word. So there you go. It's a little grittier for that reason, I guess.
So Star Wars movies associated with college football programs. What Star Wars movie in the franchise is Georgia? Who's Bama? Who's Ohio State?
Well, we did an illustration a few years ago. I'll have to dig it up and send it to you of, you know, Nick Saban with the Death Star behind him. And I've used that analogy for years, that they are the Death Star. You can blow it up, but they continue to come back. And yeah, but maybe Georgia has challenged that notion with them working on back-to-back national championships. And if you look at their schedule, probably 10 straight wins to start this season. So, you know, I think the challenge for Kirby is to avoid complacency with that loaded Georgia team that they have this year.
That is so detrimental. And Saban has talked about the rat poison, right, for years. And Kirby's, a branch from that Saban tree. And Kirby's got his own thing rocking. And I think he does a pretty good job of keeping guys humble. And even if you're an insane talent, you may not last there. I mean, Nebraska's done their fair share of grabbing three Bulldogs that were high star recruits that just didn't see the field as much. We're excited about them in Lincoln, but no one's gig is safe at Georgia or even Alabama, it feels like.
The story that got told, obviously, by Kirby Smart that stands out most to me is that before the college football playoff championship game against TCU, who ran that 3-3-5 that gave Michigan trouble, their scout team defense created a 3-3-5 to give Georgia a look. And I would wager to bet that there was more talent on that 3-3-5 that Georgia was running than TCU had on their defensive end. And, that's the kind of depth through recruiting they have, 4-star guys, 5-star guys. I pointed out that in their spring game, 25 different guys caught a pass, 8 different guys caught a pass at 20 yards or more. So it's more than just Brock Bowers. They've got talent all over the place.
Bill, you led into the 3-3-5, and Coach White has brought that with him from Syracuse to Nebraska. We're excited about it. We're not sure how it'll work in the Big Ten. I know they're going to be multiple, so they'll figure it out against stopping the run when it's snowy and windy and cold in November and someone like Wisconsin or Iowa wants to run it down your throat. What's your take on the 3-3-5? You see a bunch of teams, a handful of teams in the SEC and Big 12 run it, and a few other places do it. Nebraska will be the only program in the Big Ten with a 3-3-5.
Yeah, I mean, again, against the straight-ahead downhill running attack, results can be mixed. TCU really made it work against Michigan because of the physicality that they played with. I think, talk to any defensive coordinator that runs a 3-3-5, but to me, the key is the linebackers. Mm-hmm. If you've got linebackers that can cover in space and fill on the run, especially in the Big Ten, then you can have some success with it. But, yeah, it's been around long enough. I think a lot of teams run different variations of it, and that won't be anything foreign to what Nebraska tries with it.
So, Bill, essentially combining your last two answers, you're saying that if Husker fans were watching the national championship game and they saw the 3-3-5 there, that was not a problem with the 3-3-5. That was a problem with, what you're just playing Georgia.
Right. Yes. And no, but I mean, in the Michigan TCU game, it clearly bothered Michigan. Mm-hmm. It did. I mean, the way that, I go back to that first possession when Michigan couldn't punch it in and they resort to, trying to botch Philly special, and TCU's linebackers played with great physicality. They were smacking the running backs. They were covering well. I believe they had a linebacker, it was D. Winters, had a pick 6. So, I mean, that's kind of how you want to run it. Now, eventually you may run into it. To answer your question, Georgia's not a fair comparison, okay, right? I mean, they're their own zip code of talent. You can run whatever you want against them. You might lose.
Bill Bender's with us. Sporting News. It's Hail Varsity Radio. At Bill Bender 92 is where you follow him on Twitter. A lot of Big Ten teams make your post-spring top 25. Michigan comes in at number 2. Bill, they've got to be hungry. They've knocked on the doorstep. They've kind of entered their own special area, and I mean that they've gotten over the Ohio State hump. Not that it's always a given, but they just seem like the tougher football team the last couple of years anyway. And Harbaugh's got it rolling. He's got a returning quarterback. Are you concerned at all about the new OC, or does it matter? Their line's going to be good. They'll hand the football off.
I think they need to do what they did the last 2 games, and maybe in the second half of TCU when they were forced to, and open it up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And, they obviously have 2 really good running backs again. J.J. McCarthy is the first, they haven't had a quarterback drafted in the first round since Jim Harbaugh.
It's been forever.
The coach.
Yeah.
So they need to open up a little bit. And then defensively, the talent is there. You mentioned they cleared the Ohio State hurdle. They hadn't won in Columbus since 2000. I was at that game, just kind of, you could tell. I mean, the way that Michigan-Ohio State rivalry works sometimes, the coaching matchups. And right now, I think Jim Harbaugh's not, I don't want to say inside Ryan Day's head. They're definitely in Ohio State's head a little bit after winning back-to-back and with a chance to win 3 in a row for the first time since the 90s.
Bill, whenever you look at the Big Ten as a whole, do you think we're in for any surprises this year? Because for about 3 or 4 years, it's felt like that the Big Ten is going to be determined based on what's happened between Michigan and Ohio State at the end of November.
Penn State maybe too.
Yeah,
right.
So that's kind of what I want to get your take on, Bill. Is it going to be another year of Michigan, Ohio State based on what you saw in spring and based on what those two teams have? Or do you think the Big Ten might be a little bit more open this year before all the expansion occurs and the Big Ten changes forever?
I think this year, yes, it is Michigan, Ohio State. I think it's on Penn State to go try to change that. They're obviously excited about what they have with Drew Aller and the running backs and the defense and the talent. And they get Michigan at home this year. That was a close one last time they played in Happy Valley. They haven't beat Ohio State since they won the Big Ten in 2016. And then I would say on the other end of it, like you said, the Big Ten in transition, when UCLA and USC arrive, Wisconsin and Nebraska will have 1 year each with Fickell and Rhule, and I love both of those hires. And who am I leaving out? Maybe an Iowa could make it interesting with Cade McNamara this year, but I think the programs that really move the needle, drive the bus, whatever analogy you want to use, would all be right at the same time, which would be really good for the conference when USC and UCLA join.
Give me a thought here on Fickell in Wisconsin. I agree with you. I think he's a big-time get for Wisconsin. I like the fact he recruited and won at Cincy, and it wasn't just scheme or even system, but he got NFL guys. He was able to find NFL guys, and for whatever reason, they were overlooked, and he produced quite a few pros at Cincinnati. I think he can do that, and Wisconsin's known to develop pros anyway. So I think that's a pretty good match there. Same with Coach Rhule. He has produced pros where he's been at Baylor and at Temple. And I think he likes the kids he has in Lincoln. And I think he likes the kids they got in the portal. And for us, we're excited about Jeff Sims. Casey Thompson's into the portal, which is a hit. But Sims is a guy that, man, there's so much upside with his ability to throw and run. I mean, what's a good year one for each, in your opinion?
For Wisconsin, challenging for the Big Ten West, trying to get back to Indianapolis. The development that Luke Fickell did at Cincinnati, they had 16 guys taken in the last 3 NFL drafts total. 16 at Cincinnati. That's incredible. Like, I can't say that enough. And if he brings that to Wisconsin, who's had 13 guys drafted in the last 3 years, I mean, watch out on top of the quarterback development. I think it's the same thing you just said with Matt Rhule, developing more NFL players, getting NFL players to come to Lincoln. The quarterback play with Jeff Sims, you said that too. It's huge. I mean, he's got a ton of experience. Can they maximize the talent? I think Matt Rhule will. The fact that Casey Thompson went to the transfer portal shows confidence in Sims to me. And getting to a bowl game would be a start. Like 6-6, 7-6. That's a successful first season in Nebraska. Maybe some people don't want to hear that, but I mean, given the last few years, you just got to start winning those close games, those one-score games, and good things will come in the Big Ten West.
Bill, while we're talking about new head coaches in the Power Five, I think we got to talk about Colorado in Coach Prime. 56 outgoing transfers so far since Deion has taken over, and I want to get your thoughts. Is that a necessary evil for where Colorado was at, or is that just an evil from Coach Prime sending 56 guys to the door?
I mean, it's a great question. I think it's somewhere in the middle. They are an extreme case of numbers, and some of it is and that speech and everything that came with it. Some of it is over the top after the spring. Yeah, that's not a good thing when you have that many guys leave right after spring practice ends. The receiver, Montana Craig, that was a huge blemish on Deion as far as I'm concerned. To have a receiver ball out like that in the spring game then leave. Some of it is Colorado was 1-11, and he's trying to bring his guys in, and some of it's portal and NIL and those kind of things. So they are a perfect storm of a lot of the issues in college football, but still think get back to me on Deion next year. I think they'll continue to progress in the right direction.
With Colorado, is he a guy that you think is there in 3 years if he gets it flipped, or 5 years? Or do you think he's eyeing a bigger program, eyeing the NFL? Do you have an opinion on Deion's end game?
I think people have their mind made up on Deion, right? So to me, it's if he ends up at a bigger program, it would make sense. This is a good start. He has to prove he can do it at Colorado. He proved he can do it at Jackson State. Deion haters have hated Deion since he was high-stepping down the sideline with the Cowboys. I didn't like Deion as a player because he torched the Packers. It had nothing to do with his personality or the high-stepping or any of that stuff, because I know from listening to him, there is substance behind it. Yes, he finds the camera. Yes, he's a mega celebrity, but he's also the best cover corner I've ever seen. He also won a lot of games at Jackson State. I think there's more substance to his style than people think.
Got to ask you about Ohio sports gambling, Bama baseball. Their coach relieved of his duties, Coach Bohannon. And you've got a number of sports books around the country that have taken Bama off their big board. This goes back to a Friday night game with LSU where there were some betting irregularities. How much buzz is there with this story in Ohio, where you're from?
Not much up here, but I got wind of it today, and I haven't, sports betting been legal up here, which made sense because Ohio had such a following. But dating with the Jamison Williams suspension a few weeks ago, if you're a student athlete or a professional athlete, you're going to have to stay away from it. I mean, because otherwise I think more stories like this are going to pop up, which is unfortunate. And you have to maintain the integrity of their game. When people ask me, well, why do Jamison Williams, maybe he wasn't even he was betting. And the NFL is going to put a clamp on that as soon as possible. All I have to do is mention the name Pete Rose, and people my age in Ohio know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, he got banned from the game, and he's arguably one of the greatest players of all time.
Bill, we'll do this again. Great to get caught up. Thanks for a few minutes today.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Good to talk with Bill Bender, Sporting News at Bill Bender 92. Great stuff on the world of college football. Quarterbacks. How do you stack that quarterback room in the portal era? Well, we'll talk to Gary Barnett, Buff Coach, next on Hail Varsity.
Hail Varsity is a must-have for true Husker fans. Get a monthly magazine that'll make checking the mail fun again. Daily analysis and breaking news, including the inside scoop on recruiting on HailVarsity.com. And every June, you'll get the Nebraska Football Yearbook, a season preview completely dedicated to Nebraska football that's as comprehensive as national previews. Use that promo code AR for monthly subscriptions, that yearly promo code DB at HailVarsity.com.
Hail Varsity Club in La Vista is the perfect place to go for lunch every day. Dine in at the club and get our express lunch special for just $10. It's the all-beef Hail Varsity burger, fries, and a fountain drink delivered to your table in under 15 minutes. Hail Varsity Club in La Vista for lunch every day. And the perfect spot to watch all the big games. Reserve your table today and check out the events we've got coming up at HailVarsityClub.com. In La Vista, right next to Cabela's. Hail Varsity Club.
How long does it take to tackle a home project? With Angie, you could cross it off your list before this ad is over. Just tell us what you need, indoor or outdoor, repair or redesign, and we handle the rest, sending a top pro to get it done. You don't have to lift a finger, except to tap the screen or click the mouse. Plus, Angie is free to use. So bring us your next home project, and we'll bring it home. Download the app or go to Angie.com. That's ANGI.com to get started.
This is how we do every day. We be grinding, and if you wanna come and text us,
if you love them enough to turn off your music and pretend like their music is your music,
this is Mommy's jam.
then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at NHTSA.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
If you own a small to medium-sized business that kept employees on payroll through COVID, you may have a big cash refund waiting for you. The Employee Retention Credit is a tax credit of up to $26,000 per employee. And now, more businesses than ever qualify. The experts at RefundsPro.com specialize in cutting through the red tape of qualifying for this government program. Most of their refunds are over $100,000. Even businesses that have received PPP funds may be eligible. And there are absolutely no fees unless you receive a refund. So there's no reason not to apply. If your business experienced shutdowns, limited capacity, supply chain challenges, or reduced revenue due to COVID, you likely qualify. RefundsPro.com has already helped hundreds of businesses. So don't lose the refund.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Welcome in the Hall of Fame coach, Gary Barnett, joins us. Coach, how's the week? We're already into May. What do you know?
Unbelievable. But when you're my age, it's going really fast. So, but yeah, we finally warmed up down here and spring ball's over, and you know, we're just trying to keep track of all the guys in the portal. So it's interesting, I tell you. Usually this was a slow time, but not anymore.
There is no such thing, is there, as slow time in college football?
Not anymore, Chris. It's 13 months a year, it seems like.
Well, I want to get your reaction, and I think a lot of us that cover Nebraska aren't really surprised about Casey Thompson in the portal, just because it feels like Sims is going to be the guy. I don't know what the future holds with if guys that go to the portal come back after exploratory options, but you've known Casey's game and seen him play a lot of football. Are you shocked that he opted for the portal versus staying at Nebraska?
You know, 2 years ago, I would have said yes, but not anymore. I'm not shocked at anything anymore, Chris. This whole transfer portal thing is so out of control. And I don't know how it gets, wheeled in. I don't know. But no, I'm not surprised, because when you're picking up players and adding players, and now players have it in their mind that they are in control, they can do whatever they want, that the system isn't in control, or the coaching staff or the school, that they're in control, that they're gonna go to they're gonna give people an inch, they take a mile, and that's what's happening right now. I don't know how he's a grad transfer, so he's okay eligibility wise, but you have to come up with a reason now to have your second transfer. And, it's probably not that hard to come up with a reason once you cite mental health, and there's nothing anybody can say. But
coaching change.
Coaching change, yeah, that's mental health. But, it goes back, I think, to any time you're picking up somebody out of the portal, there's reasons they're leaving, and those reasons usually follow them. And so whatever those are, I have no idea what they might be or could be, but anything would be a speculation. But I think that's pretty much is a way to look at all these things that are happening, all these portal issues. So we're stuck with it now.
Well, or at least there's been some portal windows. So there is a bit of an off switch briefly, but Nebraska lost 3 guys that are projected starters or high snap guys. AJ Allen, that was at TCU, and his situation at running back, pretty loaded running back room. Casey would have been a luxury. That's what we feel like. If you've got a guy that started 2 years as a backup, no other program has that. You look at Alabama, coach, they're bringing in a quarterback every day to try and find one. And it's quite interesting here with just how it is. What would your strategy be Coach Barnett, for the quarterback room? You've got your starter, and he might be a multi-year starter. Do you want a young pup that may be a freshman or redshirt freshman as a backup, assuming he'd stay, and then do you go recruit a guy? Is that how you build your room now?
Well, I think it was, for me, it was much like that situation for me in 2001. And I had Craig Oakes, who was basically a 4-star guy. And then after that, we didn't have anybody, and it was hard to recruit. He started as a freshman, so it was hard to recruit anybody behind him. So I went and got a junior college player. I got 2 junior college players those guys are hungry, and they just want a chance. So I got 2 junior college players to sort of be numbers 2 and 3 or 3 and 4, so that I would at least have some depth. And sure enough, I ended up using both of them, and both of them won divisions. And so because Oaks left, so I sort of went with who really wants to be here kind of approach, and developed them. And there's guys in state that really want to be at Nebraska, and that sort of thing is the way I'd go. I mean, I think it's just too hard trying to fit somebody in there to be a backup. You can't get, it's hard to get a portal guy to be a backup. So I think you go with somebody who, whether it's a walk-on or whether it's a scholarship player that you get out of junior college, or a kid you take out of Nebraska that's got enough promise that you're willing to take a chance on, or anywhere else as far as that goes. But, Nebraska kids want to go to Nebraska. So, I think you play that card a little bit.
Gary Barnett with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, to talk more quarterbacks here, you went JUCO route as a backup. What are your feelings now with high school versus portal? You don't want to build your lines via the portal, but you can sure sprinkle in portal additions. Would you look at the quarterback portal option over a JUCO or a high school recruit, or would you still go high school?
I think that it's just a matter of luck on any of those, Chris. I think really, I mean, you go with the player who wants to be there. It's really getting lucky in this deal. It's funny, as I think about all this, I think taking in-state players that want to be there right now, taking a couple of chances that you got to, with 85-man roster, you've got room for a few guys that don't really work out, but it might be worth it at this point in time. I don't know where people are going to rest their loyalty when it's a new player at each position each year and they're coming from someplace else. I don't know how you maintain that loyalty from an older fan base or from a fan base that provides the money for scholarship. I don't know how you do that. I mean, it's walking a really fine line. And I don't know who wants to take control of that or who could take control of that to straighten it up. But it's an interesting scenario right now.
Coach, what's next for some of these college football programs? You got finals finishing up at a lot of places. Summer workouts will begin. What did you want to dictate to those team leaders about how your summer was supposed to go? Because I know coaches aren't supposed to be around during the summer, but someone needs to direct traffic, so there's some improvement.
Well, I think it's usually your quarterback and usually one of your linebackers, your key defensive guys. Those guys, they want to be good. Nobody wants to go 1-10 or 1-11 or whatever. They want to be good, and so if you've got buy-in, they're going to do whatever you think they should do, and they'll organize it. But you'll organize it yourself. I mean, you're really going to tell me now that there are no rules in any other aspect of the game, that there's going to be rules enforced as to who organizes off-season workouts? Come on.
I know that makes no sense, but
it makes no sense.
This is the world.
Chris.
This is the world we're living in, right?
It ain't happening. There'll be a schedule up somewhere sent to every kid, tell them when to do, what plays to call. It'll be done. And I mean, and really, who cares who's going to call them out for it?
Yeah. Good point. Well, I was just wondering, that dynamic. What do you think of the college football playoff schedules here for 2024, 2025? Do you like the first round setup, that triple header? And there's also some butting of heads going up against NFL weekends and also NFL playoff weekends.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the college football fan doesn't necessarily spill over to the NFL. And I think the same way with the NFL. The NFL fan doesn't necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of crossover. Don't get me wrong, but the real college football fan is going to watch college football, and the real NFL fan is going to watch the NFL. I don't know. That's a lot of football, but you know what? Frankly, we're all somewhat addicted to the doggone game.
We love it.
And at that time of the year, we just come to expect. Sit down and watch TV the whole day. I mean, what the heck? It's a couple days, who cares? So that's what I see happening.
Well,
you can record anything. You can record anything, so you're going to get to watch it.
How about this, though? Someday, hopefully in the near future, it's a December 20th Friday game. That's for the 2024 season, but it's that Friday, December game at Memorial Stadium or in Boulder, Colorado, because it's campus sites for three of them before you get to the quarterfinals. I mean, we have dreamed in Nebraska of having Miami play in Lincoln in January or December for decades, Coach.
Well, we'll just have to, we got to get there first, and then let everybody worry about that. Right now, the Southern schools are controlling most of that.
They are. Are you doing anything, or do you get into the Kentucky Derby at all?
I do not, Chris. I don't even know who runs. I don't know how far they run. I have not wanted to go. It's just I don't have enough room in my brain for that sort of thing right now. I
didn't know if you were throwing a derby party. That's what I'm getting.
No derby parties. No derby parties. I don't even know when it's being run.
It's Saturday. Saturday at Saturday at 5:35. Yeah. I don't win I pick horribly, but I always do a derby party. So
I don't have to worry about that.
Okay. Well, good for you. That means more golf time for Coach Barnett. Coach, it was fun to get caught up with you. Always appreciate talking ball, and thanks for a few minutes today.
All right, Chris. Great being with you. Thanks.
Gotta love spending time with Coach Barnett. Good thoughts on the quarterback. Very real about the loyalty question mark with the portal. And can you bring in and keep, or is it just going to be a turnstile? And what Deion's trying to do flip-wise is being watched by everybody. You had the Mel Tucker factor a couple years ago, turned into an 11-2, but that looks like more lightning in a bottle. Jeff Smith going to be with us. We'll talk Husker roster next.
KFOR has a chance at some free money for Mom. It's $2,000.
I could use some extra cash.
To win, just sign up daily at KFORnow.com.
All right, big old hot tub party is happening. Deb, the spa lady, back with us. Deb, how we doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's so great to be back talking to you, Chris. And it couldn't have been at a better time because we're having a big spa expo out at the Lancaster Event Center this weekend. And we have rented the one part of the Lancaster Event Center. We've brought in over 40 hot tubs. And believe you me, these are all home innovations. We're not a traveling show. We're going to be there after the sale. We've got lots of selection. The show starts Friday at 2:00, runs through Sunday. Come out, take a look at the different colors, different models. It's such a great experience because you can see the lounge, the no lounge. You can see the swim spa. You can see everything, the little 2-person, everything you could imagine.
Selection and service over 30 years. Go see Deb. The Spa Expo at the Lancaster Event Center.
It's no secret that this economy is taking its toll on every single person, but I've got some important news that could really help. If you're facing $10,000 or more in credit card debt, medical bills, or other unsecured debt, you need to know that you may not be required to pay it all back. Listen up. There are special programs that can significantly reduce the amount you'll owe if you qualify. This isn't bankruptcy or a high-interest debt consolidation loan. These are programs the credit card companies don't want you to know about, ones that offer Americans struggling with overwhelming credit card debt savings and real debt relief faster than thought possible. Accredited Debt Relief has a special hotline to learn all about these programs and what savings you might qualify for. They've helped qualified consumers with over $1 billion in debt and have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. So call the Accredited Debt Relief hotline right now for this free information. The number is 800-323-1991. 1-800-323-1991. That's 1-800-323-1991 right now.
Had enough of those little flies in your kitchen?
I did. That's why I got Zevo. I just plug in the trap, insert a cartridge, and let the light do all the work.
Zevo traps use blue and UV light to attract and trap flying insects with no odor, no mess, and no stress. Stop swatting and ditch the DIY traps. With Zevo, getting rid of bugs is as easy as
click, click, blue.
Zevo. People friendly, bug deadly.
Already Friday with KFOR, Schmidt and Carroll.
More details on the motive behind the Atlanta shooter.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One and down a Thursday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Connor Clark. Find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio or at Connor Clark. That's at C_Clark_27. Hall of Fame coach, longtime assistant with Nebraska basketball, Jeff Smith, with us to talk some Big Red basketball with some roster moves. Coach, have you found a quiet spot there out on the old green? I'm jealous right now.
Well, I'm not playing. I actually do a little marshaling out here at the course, so I'm technically working. Not that I won't get the clubs out when I'm done, but yesterday was the day, though, Chris. That was the day.
I know. Do you heckle or taunt like someone's shooting free throws? Instead, they're just putting for dough?
I give them a good noonan every once in a while. You know, the old Caddyshack noonan, but that's usually pretty effective.
It is. It is. And some of it just doesn't matter. But some moves here for Nebraska basketball. A thought from you with Wilhelm Breidenbach. We've affectionately nicknamed him the Unabomber, just with the get up. But no, good hard-nosed player. Really loved his intensity. He has decided to move on. What do you think of that? Is it, no doubt sounding crass, is it a big deal that he's moving on, or do you think it will hurt Nebraska a little bit here next season?
I think two things. You use 2 years, we're really a year and a half of this injury of experience that you've given him and kind of let him take his lumps, and now you're losing probably when he's going to have the better part of his career. And you might miss his length a little bit. He was a longer, skilled guy. I thought his strength levels were still low. I thought he had trouble competing with strength. I thought they found a role for him that was come off the bench, play hard for 4 or 5 minutes, try to play physical. You know, if they back off of you, you get it, take a three and see if you can make that. And sometimes you could. He was defending harder, rebounding better, but he's one of those guys that'll probably be better his last 2 years. So we won't get to see that here, but I also at the same time think he's replaceable here. I just think that there's, even like Josiah Alec wasn't ready when he was coming out of high school either for Big Ten play, but with his development at UMKC and New Mexico, I think he's ready now. And I think he's probably a little better athlete than Wilhelm, and probably a little quicker, and probably can defend a little better. And he's built his body up to 240. And so to me, it's a good trade for Nebraska. I think they're fine. And then with the portal the way it is, does it really matter? Because you can go replace them so darned easy. I check the portal every day, just kind of look through it. It's just amazing. I know they're running out of time to get in there, so we'll probably see a little run here at the end.
Coach Jeff Smith is with us on Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to ask you about Josiah Alec and kind of your assessment of the transfer class so far. Right now, according to On3, Nebraska is number 2 in the transfer class recruitment so far in the 2023 offseason. So your thoughts on Alex coming back to Lincoln and then the transfer class as a whole?
Yeah, I think what I like that they've done is they've gotten kids that have won at the college level, have played pretty high-level college basketball at good programs. They've built their bodies up. They started that last year with Jawan and those guys and Bandamel, and they fit good. They were good kids that played hard from good programs, and I think they continue that with this transfer class. With Bradley went a long ways or won their conference. Charlotte, they played well in the tournament. What was it, CIT, I think, and then just that experience of those kids, the maturity of those kids, I think is important. I don't know if I would have put them number 2, but that's good to hear. But I think they fit what Nebraska needs.
Jeff Smith with us, Hall of Fame basketball coach, Hail Varsity Radio, going through the week that's been with Husker Hoops. What do you make of the get for Nebraska with Ulis at point? I know his turnover numbers were really good at Iowa. Not a lot of offense, not a lot of 3-point production. Is he going to be able to up that, or will he be asked to for Fred?
I think he could up it. If you think about, he's played with the Murray brothers who are high volume. He's played with the two, Connor and the two sons that, like to shoot a little bit too. And I just think he was probably 6th or 7th option or 8th option on that team. And I don't think they needed him to shoot a lot. His shooting percentages weren't great, but I don't think that's what Fred wants him for. I think Fred wants a guy that can defend at the point of attack. Like you said, his assist-to-turnover ratio is pretty solid. He's not going to walk into Big Ten gyms and be big-eyed because he's been there already. And again, another kid from a winning program. I'm fairly excited about him, and I think Fred always feels like he can help guys shooting. I think he can. So maybe this is a guy that blossoms a little bit in his last 2 years here.
I think this team heading into next season has a lot of really interesting lineup potential. Your dream starting 5 for you next season, assuming Casey ends up coming back?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a battle at maybe the 4 spot between Williams and Gary and Alec. Those are 4 players and maybe Williams can be a 3. I'm not sure. So I think Ulis at the point, Casey at the 2, and then if you go small, Lawrence has got to fit in there somewhere. And then, the big kid from Bradley. And then, like I said, I can't pick him without seeing him. It's hard to do in Fred's system. But, I think the big from Bradley is going to start at the 5, and Ulis probably start at the point unless Jamarcus Lawrence thinks he can play that and they try it, experiment with him. But I don't know about like Williams, Alec, and those guys at the 3-4 positions. I'm not sure.
What's Nebraska have real quick, Coach, in Lloyd, redshirt freshman? We've seen sparks from Jamarcus Lawrence. What can Lloyd bring with minutes this year?
Yeah, definitely has some length, has some size, 6'6" or so, and I think he's a combo guard. He's not a pure. I think they wanted a kid that was kind of a pure point in Ulis, but I think they have some guys like Lloyd and Lawrence that can combo it up a little bit. So I think they're going to have a kid that'll buy in defensively, like Coach Linzer wants him to, and I think he's a lot like Juwan Gary with a little more guard skills. I don't think he's refined offensively yet, but I think he has a little more handling skills, guard skills, and is that kind of an athlete playing, I think.
Jeff Smith with us, Hall of Fame basketball coach, longtime assistant at Nebraska, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, enjoy marshaling. Get the putter dusted off and go get some more birdies. All right. Thanks for jumping in with us today.
You bet, Chris. It's all about the short game, right?
Yes, it is, especially the way I've been teeing off. Coach, you take care. See ya.
You bet. Thanks.
Good stuff from Coach Smith. Big thanks to him. That'll be on the podcast page, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, full show or different segments. Jeff Smith, Gary Barnett, Bill Bender, Brandon Vogel in hour one. We'll wrap up hour two. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency.
My friend and I are taking a trip to Mexico this year, but neither of us speak Spanish. So we downloaded Babbel and started learning Spanish fast.
Want to start getting conversational in another language? In as little as 3 weeks, Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons were designed by language experts to be the most efficient and effective way to learn a new language.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
I've always gotten tons of UTIs. Cranberry products never worked for me, and I was desperate for a way to be proactive. I'm Jenna Ryan, CEO and founder of Eucora. We've worked with doctors to develop effective urinary tract health products. Eucora is helping over 100,000 women stay healthy. Ready to join them? Get 30% off at eucora.com/radio. That's UQORA.com/radio.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
This Mother's Day, prepare an incredible meal for her without all the dishes with the Venue Mother's Day to-go meals. Prepared fresh in-house by our chefs, these meals are ready to heat and eat with packages for 2 to 4 people or 6 to 8. And your choice of juicy beef tenderloin, herb roasted chicken, pork tenderloin, or our famous 6-pepper crusted prime rib. All meal packages come with sides, and we have many add-ons available to complete your feast. Order today at venuedelivered.com/Mother's Day. That's venuedelivered.com/Mother's Day.
At Venue Catering and Events, we offer 2 of the most historic ballrooms in Lincoln. The Jasmine Room, located in the historic Grand Manse in the heart of downtown, featuring a beautiful built-in antique bar, spacious patio, and soaring skylit ceilings. The Scottish Rite Ballroom, located just 2 blocks from the state's capital, boasts intricate hand-carved columns, rich dark wood floors, and lavish chandeliers. The perfect venues to host your wedding, corporate event, or much more. For availability and more information, call us at 402-603-6483.
When you want a brand new kitchen, there's nothing to it. There's a brand new way to do it. 3-Day Kitchen and Bath.
Bill talks about his experience with 3-Day Kitchen and Bath.
We had 2 bathrooms. It was from the 1950s. We didn't know what to expect. We were a little skeptical that they could actually do this in that short a period of time. They did an amazing job. Brand new tub, shower, toilet, sinks, cabinetry, flooring, tile, you name it.
Were you happy with the finished product?
Very impressive, and we're just anxious to show it off to people now.
So you'd recommend 3-Day Kitchen and Bath?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we can probably get a few more miles out of our kitchen, but, when the time comes to do that, we'll...
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, it's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Stream the show anytime you want. And appreciate everyone chiming in on the stream with some of your comments. Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed is where you follow and can also watch at HVarsity Radio. Emails to Chris at hailvarsity.com. Just for your notes, Connor, reports are out. Sportsbook surveillance video indicated that a person who placed the bets in Cincinnati, that abnormally large amount on LSU for the straight-up win last Friday, that person who was placing the bets was communicating with Bohannon. At the time, multiple sources with direct information about the investigation told ESPN.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. So he was betting against his team, allegedly.
That's so just.
And he pulled his starting pitcher on a Friday night to do it.
Low. Like, I wonder what like the whole team, like the dudes on the team feels like, because I mean, it's one thing to have a room full of professionals in there, but then it's another thing to have a room full of 18 to 22-year-olds in there just feeling slighted by their head coach that recruited them there. I mean, that's low.
Well, but let's be honest. It wasn't, I mean, it was against LSU.
I know, but still.
I know. I can't talk my way out of this.
Yeah. You can't bet against the guys that you brought in.
Can't bet on them?
Literally.
You can't bet on them? But then
you can, but not with currency.
Then you just don't bet, right? You pull the Pete Rose. You just don't bet that day.
I guess.
Here's how Alabama's gear is gone. You have football player Jermaine Burton striking Tennessee co-ed on the field. Football player Tony Mitchell arrested for guns and weed. Basketball player Darius Miles arrested for capital murder. Basketball transfer commit Jaquan Walton arrested for gun and weed. Baseball coach Brad Bohannon fired amid point shaving investigation. And you have Deputy AD Travis Self arrested for domestic violence.
It's a hell of an
Pour
academic year.
a scotch, a tall one, a Johnny Depp goblet goblin of scotch or whatever Mr. Byrne drinks, whatever his poison of choice is. And then he had Oates, right? Still playing the guy.
Yeah, I actually just wrote a paper on this for one of my classes. It was like a case study of how they handled it.
Yeah, okay. So give me the kid's name that was supposed to be like a top 3 pick.
Brandon Miller.
Yeah, Miller for his warm-ups, like 5 days later, walks out and gets patted down.
Yeah, that was
awful.
That was a poor, like, okay, that's a
poor
handshake.
decision.
That's a handshake
poor
that I've
decision
seen
is what you're telling me.
Used by many players on many different teams. So it's a thing.
So it's
bad timing.
Okay, so
horrible timing.
It wasn't just broke out after the
Correct.
capital murder charge.
Correct.
That makes me feel a little bit better.
Like that is a handshake. Like I've seen high school players and college players do that all the time.
Patted down.
But it just read the room. Terrible timing.
Well, and you want to be a hot shooter on the court.
Exactly.
I would hope that's the reference and not every mass shooting every other day. So there you go. Well, who's grading your paper? Dare we ask?
Brian Petrata. So
Okay.
shout out to Professor Petrata.
Good. Well, you'll get a fair shake at least with that grading.
Good thing Dolman isn't grading it, or else that would be an automatic F.
Well, it might be. Remember to get buckled up, and a reminder, you drink, you drive, you lose. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Take care. Back tomorrow at 4.
If you own a small to medium-sized business that kept employees on payroll through COVID, you may have a big cash refund waiting for you. The Employee Retention Credit